We are live. Come on in the room. I am so excited about today. I can't wait to get started. Whether you are here live right now or you're watching this live stream later, just thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time caring for yourself. We've kind of been chatting about some self-care stuff before we hopped on. And so I am so excited to bring Dr. Peoples to you guys. I'm so excited for her to share her expertise. I'm Jasmine Porter, and I am a almost 20-year veteran in education. But I mean, I think everybody's a new teacher at this point because this is different from anything we have ever seen before. The playing field has been leveled. We are all embarking upon something that none of us have been trained to do, but we're just doing our best to kind of get prepared and get ready. And so, in the midst of that, I started calling on my True Blue Brigade to just bring my teachers some, what can we do to keep ourselves safe? And so this is the first of an entire series, and she was the first to answer, and I'm just very, very blessed to have her with us. And I know that she's going to bless you with all of the information that we're going to share. So it is my extreme pleasure to present to you Dr. Nicole Peoples. Hello, Dr. Peoples.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. This is really exciting. So thanks.
Thank you. We are excited to have you. So, I just want to share a little bit about Dr. Peoples. I talk about, my True Blue Brigade, but Dr. Peoples is a part of that brigade. She's a part of a sisterhood that I can't get enough of it. There is nothing that my Spelman sisters won't do for each other. And it's such a blessing to have a team like that and to have people like that on your side. And so I'm super grateful to have her here. She is a doctor. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself and her background because she'll probably do a better job. But undergrad is Spelman College. We need to put that out there and let the world know that, we are very, very true blue.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to let you do your spiel and introduce yourself and just let us know who you are. Give us a little bit about your background, your experience. And then once we talk about background and experience, we're going to just share some information, some good information, some things that you can do to take care of yourself and boost your immune system. And then I'm going to open up the floor for people who are still here to ask some questions, so Dr. Peoples can field some questions for us. So go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and why you are better than qualified to help teachers out before we start the school year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Nicole Peoples. I am a internal medicine physician. I've been in practice for almost 12 years now, almost 13 years now. And what I've done over the course of my training is I spend a lot of time training in internal medicine, which is basically medicine for adult doctors. And my specialty is in something called hospital medicine, where I basically take care of patients who come into the hospital who are hospitalized for critical illnesses and chronic illnesses. And over the course of the last 12 years, I also had a really big passion for integrative holistic medicine. And so I have my own practice in functional and lifestyle medicine, where I help people optimize how their bodies work so that they can prevent illness. And so this was like a nice merging where I get to do both my internal medicine, which is take care of people with chronic illness, and then also help people prevent getting chronic illness. More recently, since the advent of COVID, in my hospital practice, I take care of the hospital patients who have COVID. So that's my entire job. And I work in a type of hospital where I see people who have somewhat recovered from COVID, but still are on ventilators, so that they haven't been able to be weaned off of the ventilators. And so it's my job to get them off of the ventilators and get them home safely. So I've been able to see, a wide array of patients and what those patients look like. And as the news and all the information has told you, a lot of that looks like people with chronic illnesses, people who are older, and people who have compromised immune systems. So what I've been doing is really talking to people about how do you boost your immune system. because oftentimes it's not just the infection that you're being affected by, but it's the person who's being affected, what is going on inside the body of the person who gets in contact with an illness. So that's me. Like you said, I'm also a Spelman grad, so that holds more weight than anything I just said.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So I just kind of want to open up with kind of what you just said. And as we were kind of chatting before we came on a few days ago, and there was something that you said that really struck me. And it was, teachers that are going back are going to be exposed to the virus. Like that's inevitable. It's going to be in our buildings. Teachers are going to be exposed. And so I think not that that's new information, but just hearing it from a medical professional and hearing that kind of come out of your mouth, it kind of knocked the wind out of me a little bit, and it really made me, start to be reflective about, being proactive, and and also the bit about it's not really about the virus, it's more about the body that encounters the virus. And so if you could just talk a little bit as someone who encounters COVID patients on a regular. If you could talk a little bit about before we get into the school building, before we are exposed, in rapid rates to large groups of people, what could we do at home right now to kind of start to create a body and to
Right.
start to prepare a body that could mount a fortified immune system?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to recognize, because there is a lot of counter push to make people feel like this is not real or it's not serious. And I've heard people from all walks of life who, I had a lady told me yesterday, well, I don't really believe Fauci. And I just wanted to just crumble up and because there are people out here who actively don't believe that this is a real issue and that starting school is really not a huge threat. And so it is important for us to know that this is out here. I mean, I work in a hospital system where we are seeing increased numbers of COVID go up. I mean, we're seeing the number of patients in our hospital now is equivalent to what we usually see during the flu season. So usually the summer, we don't see that many patients, as many patients as we see in the winter. And right now we're seeing winter numbers. So it's real. We're seeing increased numbers. We can't pretend like it doesn't exist. So we know that we're going to go into an environment when we enter in schools where we're going to come in contact with the virus, particularly because we don't even know what the kids' families believe, right? We don't know whether or not they are being masked at home, whether the family members even believe COVID is a real thing. So it's important that we are going into it very proactive. And I try to encourage people to say, listen, COVID is a real thing, but you're not helpless, right? There are things that you can do to enhance your overall health. And like I said, a lot of the patients that I see in the hospital are going to be people who have pre-existing conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, or people who are elderly or people who are immunocompromised. That would be someone who might have had cancer in the past or on immunosuppressives or a medication or on steroids, those types of things that decrease the immune system. And so the real thing that we have to do is it kind of brings back the things that we should be thinking about anyway, which is how do we optimize the way our body functions? How do we manage our chronic illnesses? And how do we do the things that prevent chronic illness from developing? And, things that will decrease your immune system and chronic illnesses that develop in our bodies, they happen over a long period of time. Chronic illness, the word chronic means long, right?
Right.
It lasts a long time. So these illnesses do not come out of nowhere. They are built up over time. And what causes chronic illnesses, particularly in this country? What we eat, how we manage stress, what is our physical activity. And so even though this is something that I think we give a lot of, cheap talk to, eating your vegetables,
Yeah.
getting outside, getting some fresh air, doing things like meditation or yoga, this virus has really brought out absolutely how important this is in our day-to-day lives. And so I really want people to revisit those things that they've heard before, that they just know that they should be doing but haven't done. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today may not be things that you haven't heard about, but it is just that much more important for you to take those things really serious now, because you really want to put yourself in the best possible position to avoid getting disease.
Sure.
So I can, say a few things about what you will do at home right now. And the biggest thing that I talk to people about, and I can talk about all day, is going to be nutrition. It's what you're eating, right? And so what you really want to focus on is what types of foods are you going to take to school with you? Are you going to make your own meals? Are you going to eat on campus? Are you going to eat out fast food? I would encourage you to bring your own meals. And not just because of sanitation reasons. I'm talking about the nutrients in the food that actually boost your immune system, that actually help your body do what it's supposed to do.
Speak to that a little bit, because I think people are, I know for me, I have really stocked up on supplements and, vitamins, and I'm, like I'm taking this shot of elderberry syrup every day, or I'm taking my zinc and, taking vitamin C and, trying to take my supplements, take my regular multivitamin. But I hear a lot from my own doctor, and now I'm hearing it kind of reiterated from you, before you start to supplement, if your diet is trash, then taking all those supplements is not going to help your body. So if you could talk a little bit about just specifically,
Yes.
what are some things that I could be eating? What are some things that I could consume regularly? What would a good lunch look like for a teacher to bring to school to just give her immune system a good shock to say we're ready to take on 25 kindergartners?
Right. So the first thing I would say is going to be vegetables, 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 and lots of colors. Right. So there's a game that I play with my patients and also with my kids where we have like this worksheet, and it's how many different colors can you get in a day of various vegetables. So things like purple cabbage, that's purple. If you have zucchini, well, that might be a green. And then if you have blueberries, that might be a blue. So you want to just find different ways to get diversity in. And again, this isn't sort of like anecdotal. This has been studied that we know that the chemicals in the colors, which are called phytonutrients, those are the things that actually feed the cells. So you might want to think about ways to incorporate meals in your day that are heavily vegetable laden, and less on the carbs. And again, I'm not talking about carbs in terms of calories or in terms of weight loss. I'm more concerned about how carbs turn into sugar in your body, and how sugar is pro-inflammatory and can cause your body to decrease its immune response. So I'm not telling you not to go paleo or anything like that. What I want you to do is I want you to focus on getting as many vegetables and fruits in your diet. And I'm putting the emphasis on vegetables, because when I say fruits and vegetables, people are like, well, I'm going to have, 8, oranges, I'm going to have a smoothie and a juice. And I really want people to focus on the vegetable part of it, because obviously the fruits have a lot of sugar in them. Although they're good sugars, if we do too much of it, it can also decrease our immune system. So really focusing on lots of different colors. It doesn't just have to be salads, but I like salads, smoothies, stir fries, soups. I do something called the flip. So even if you wanted to make something like a pasta, you want to put more vegetables in your pasta than you put pasta. So there are ways for you to think about food that you're really making an intentional effort to get more vegetables. And when I say more, I mean like more than 6, if ideally 9. It's
per
really
meal or
hard
per day?
per day. Per
Okay.
day. But it's really hard to get that number of vegetables if you're not intentional. So like, let's just take an example. In the morning, if you wanted to do like an egg muffin, or an omelet or something like that, then you might put some onions in it and some garlic, both of which have really good immune boosting chemicals. And then maybe some spinach. Okay, so right there you may have gotten 2 servings of vegetables. And let's say you're going to have a fruit too. So that's 3. So you're already there, 3. You get to lunch, and then you're going to have a salad where you're going to have kale and carrots and maybe some green cabbage and some cucumber. So now you've piled up again. And so now maybe you want to put on some protein there. So you put on some chicken or some fish, if you're a person who eats meat. And then for dinner, again, you might have 2 vegetables and then maybe a protein, whether that's tofu or whatever your protein of choice is. So, but it's very intentional. Now, the flip of that is, let's say you wake up in the morning and you're going to have pancakes or cereal, no vegetables. You go to lunch and you have a burger and fries, no vegetables. And you go to dinner and you have lasagna, meat lasagna, no vegetables. So it's really easy to not get vegetables in your diet in a standard meal. You have to be intentional to get those vegetables.
What would you say? I have a couple of questions as I'm thinking about vegetables, and you named several different ways to consume them. What would you say? I've been hearing a lot of conversations about raw versus cooked vegetables and, going raw, boosting your immune system. What is your take on the way that we prepare our vegetables and our food in general?
Yeah, so this is a really tricky question. I think, from my experience, that different people do better with different forms of diets, and so I try not to spend too much time talking about paleo or vegan or raw vegan, because ideally, if I could just get people to eat less of a standard American diet and more vegetables in their diet, then we know we're doing our bodies good. But if we wanted to get into how nutrients are preserved,
Hmm.
some nutrients are activated by heat and others are destroyed by heat. And so I tend to err on the side of, if you're going to be cooking your vegetables, that you obviously want to not cook them until they're smush. You want to make sure that they have some sort of crunch to them. And I absolutely think you should be getting raw vegetables into your diet daily, and not just raw vegetables, but also think about fermented vegetables. So when we talk about diet, making sure that you have in fermented foods or probiotics, because that really helps your gut system, which is really the root of a lot of illness, or health. If your gut is working fine, then the rest of your body seems to follow suit. And the only way to ensure that's happening is that you're getting tons of fiber, which is the food for the bacteria in your gut, and also a lot of probiotics. So oftentimes I would say raw vegetables in the fermented form is absolutely a way that you should consider consuming it. So that would be things like kimchi, which is a Japanese
Hmm.
form of cabbage, or sauerkraut. And you can also do things like fermented beverages that don't have as much, but things like kombucha or something like that. But that tends to have a little bit more sugar. Yogurt, if you're a person who does dairy, I'm not a person who thinks that dairy is great when you're trying to fight an infection. I usually tell people, if you're feeling sick, you want to remove dairy from your meal, from your diet. If not, have dairy out of your diet completely.
Wow.
So when we're talking about looking at, are we going to be doing raw probiotics, you may want to think of other forms of yogurt. So maybe yogurts that come from coconut milk or something like that, almond milk. Yeah.
All right, so the second part of the question is kind of like, I don't want to strike like what you said, because obviously if we could, like you said, shift from standard American eating, everybody would be healthier.
Mhm.
So if we had to talk to people who were meat eaters, right, and
Mhm.
who were consuming meat instead of just vegetables, if they were in a place where they said, I'm not ready to just take the meat off the table, would it be so? And I'm speaking from, as a Southern girl,
You're
I
right.
know it's very hard to get people in the South to let go of their beef and pork, particularly in the Black community, right? We love our beef, we love our pork, we love, those kinds of meats. And so if you could kind of give us all something with some shock value that would help us to make better decisions about either consuming it at all or reducing the consumption, and what we could replace that with.
Okay, so probably the shock value is going to be in the opposite direction of where you expect. I'm not going to tell people to stop eating meat, and it's
Okay.
not because I think meat is the most healthy thing. I just, from real good personal experience, some people have to have meat in their diets for various reasons. For example, if you have an autoimmune disease, um, then I always recommend for those patients to go off of dairy and gluten. So you're removing grains and you're removing dairy. It's really hard to also remove meat
Yeah.
in those situations. And so I really think that diets need to be personalized. What I find is that people think of meat as like a main course. And what I do try to steer people away from is making meat a main course and making it something that you have at every meal or even every week. I
Mm.
eat meat, but I rarely eat meat. And I usually use it as a condiment as opposed to a main dish. So, for example, I may make, again, let's say a pasta, just because pasta is coming to my mind right now. My pastas are going to have a ton of vegetables in them. If my kids want some form of meat or my husband wants some form of meat, I may throw some meat in there the same way I might throw some onions in there. It's like a side
Gotcha.
note. You might get a taste of meat. You might get the flavor of it. If I'm going to make a soup, I may make a bone broth, but the soup itself is vegetables, right? So there are ways to limit meat, and I absolutely encourage people to limit their consumption of meat if they're going to eat meat. I'll tell you, I've been vegan, I've been raw, I've done every single diet, and I don't do well if I don't have some in my diet. But again, I might eat meat 3 times a week, maybe, and where most people are eating it three times a day, right? I
Yeah.
may have one meal on a Monday and then have it on another meal on a Thursday and another meal on a Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a very heavily part of my diet. And so that's what I encourage people to do, is to really, again, if you're going to be intentional about getting vegetables in your diet, something has to leave. Something is
Yeah.
you're going to eat less of something. So if you think about your meals, how can I get 3 servings at each meal of vegetables? Well, if you're going to make a side of cabbage and a side of collard greens and a side of sweet potatoes, there's not a whole lot of room for a big,
Steak.
chicken breast there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're just not going to eat as much of it, or you just remove it all together and not have it in the meal. So again, to answer the question, because I know there are going to be people who are vegan, who are raw, who are like, no, that is the best absolute way. I just know clinically their diets need to be individualized. And the only
Yeah.
way for you to do that is to do an elimination diet, which is a real process to figure out what foods work best for you.
I think that's a great way to look at it, is that, really, and we're going to talk some about just like your private practice towards the end of our time together, and just kind of share where people can get some of those resources to personalize their diets and really create a meal plan that works for each person individually. But I want to shift a little bit to from consumption, like nutrition, to just the environment, because it's such a huge part of what teachers do, right? We do it in desks, in classrooms, in shared spaces with shared materials. And I think that's on a lot of teachers' minds, is just, how are we going to manage these shared spaces and these close quarters next year with students? And what is, obviously this is not the most ideal situation. You don't have people in hospitals sharing needles and beds and rooms regularly for a reason, right? Because you don't want to share spaces with sick people and spread germs. But how could teachers approach, especially those who are definitely going to have students in classrooms with them? What are some just go-tos? If I'm going to have students in the room with me, I need to make certain that I'm doing these things every day.
All right. So hopefully, I'm going to talk about it in the terms of a school that is indeed trying to implement some precautions,
Sure.
right? Obviously, if
Sure.
there's school systems who are like, no, we're about to go back to the way things were.
Get
I don't
out.
There's still things we can do, but it's not as ideal. So, for example, one of the things that we've done to our classrooms, which I think is not going to be helpful right now, is a lot of the classrooms now don't have individual desks. Everybody sits around the table or something like that.
Right.
So, if it's possible to somehow go back to individual desks that are spaced apart, I think that would be ideal. And I think that's what a lot of these sort of school camps, I don't know what they're doing by you guys, but there's a lot of these pods where they may still have 12 kids in a room, but it's only 12 or it's only 10 or it's only 8, because that's the number of kids that can fit in this space 6 feet apart, right? So that would be the primary thing. If not, if you still have to do those, circle desks, or then you really need to spread people out. And I have seen online where they have these partitions that separate kids. Again, it's not ideal, but we are dealing with kids. And if you can have anything physical barrier to keep them from touching one another, or touching each other's space, that will be an improved situation. You want to absolutely ensure that the kids are all wearing masks. Period, point blank. There's no discussion about it. Particularly indoors. I also would encourage people to wear masks outdoors as well, although it's not necessary. But if you're going to be around in a playground, I can't imagine you not coming in real close physical contact with other kids. So I just think you should wear your mask even if you're outdoors in these large communal groups. Sanitization. So, you want to make sure that you're sanitizing and going into the room and going out of the room. And sanitizing in the room, but particularly make sure that there's a sanitation stand or something right when kids walk in. Do not let them come into your room without washing their hands or doing some form of sanitation with the hand sanitizers. And you want to make sure that the school system is doing their due diligence to ensure that they're cleaning up every chance they get. So if the kids are coming into the rooms and leaving for any reason, when they leave, that's when sanitation needs to happen, because oftentimes a lot of these sanitizers that we're wiping down surfaces with have to stay on the surfaces wet for a certain amount of time. And we don't
Oh,
usually we're like, wipe down, and then everybody's put their hands back down. A lot of these disinfectants, and if you read, I just pulled some that were in my house, but just like this one, if you read it, to disinfect, it has to be wet on a surface for 4 minutes. So what I encourage people to do when they're going out and they're getting their sanitation materials or what the school is providing, please read the instructions. They will tell you how long that this has to be on a surface to actually disinfect that surface. And so we want to make sure that they're sanitizing. As far as shared materials, I just don't think
okay.
they can, right? I
Yeah.
think everybody needs to have their own material. So everybody has their own scissors, everybody has their own crayons, everybody has their own pencils, and all of that stuff needs to be at the desk so that the kid doesn't have to get up, go to some other place, find a cubby with their name on it and pull it out, because that's just passing by people. They're going to
Hmm.
tell people. I mean, I've got a kindergartner, a second grader, and a fifth grader. I know my kids. They are not going to, my son, he's in the fifth grade. He's not going to walk past his friend and not touch his chair. He just isn't going to do it.
No.
So, you want to have all that stuff in that space that you created for the kids. And the same thing goes for when they come to your desk. I know that's going to be hard, particularly for the teachers who are elementary students and they're used to touching. But these are all things that need to be explained up front when the kids get in classroom and need to be reinforced every single day. Mrs. So-and-so's desk has a blue tape. You are not allowed to cross this tape. If you have a question, you need to ask it from your desk and you need to raise your hand. Again, this is going to be hard. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just
Yes. Yes.
happen to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I would agree. And I was thinking that, I think what's on teachers' minds is we know kids, right? Just like you said, like, your son, and you know that your son is not going to get up. And so it's like, think about 25 fifth graders like your son in a room and trying to get them to culturally to shift, like what it is. I'm sorry. Culturally to shift like what it is we do every day in school and how we interact with each other every day in school. I think is the hardest thing to kind of envision, because people are like, what does this look like to have fifth graders socially distance themselves in a situation where they really just are itching to get close to each other or even get close to me as their teacher? What can I do as an educator? What can I do as an educator to you said disinfect and wiping things down, but what else can I do what other things can I do as an educator to and you said the partitions. I heard that as well. Is there any other tips or pointers from a medical standpoint that you feel like educators can offer students as they come into the room to kind of prepare them for this kind of new normal in the classroom?
So my first question is where are we, are they talking about in areas that you're familiar with or with teachers that you've spoken with where they're planning on having 25 kids in a room still? Is that like a thing?
We could potentially have 25 kids in some classrooms in districts that I'm working with right now. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well,
Easy. When we're talking look, especially K-2, our younger kids, they're definitely going back into school buildings. And that's the reason why I'm asking these, I know that they're tough questions. I'm asking these questions because I'm thinking about the 65-year-old diabetic kindergarten teacher, right? Who now has 25 6-year-olds or 5-year-olds in her room. What is she to do to protect herself? What is she to do to kind of help? And it's almost my only answer when I'm talking to teachers is I have no idea what you do in that situation to protect yourself.
okay. So I'm going to give you a couple of answers to that, and some of them might seem extreme. But the first thing that came to my mind when you said I have a 65-year-old diabetic, I would get on some of these Facebook groups and see if somebody needs to be hired to run a pod. I literally would not go back into that classroom. I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, I think that is the highest risk group. That's who I see. African-American Black women with diabetes who were over the age of 50, not 65. So I honestly don't think it's safe for that person to go back into and I think that there are other options. I mean, there are people out looking for people to sub, be facilitators of pods. If that's something that they can do and look for other creative options to be able to use their skill set outside of the classroom, that would be my first recommendation. Okay, if that's not possible, then the next thing would try to get into a scenario where you are seeing the least number of people in a day. You don't want to be in the room with the 25 kids. So if you need to see if they can shift you to be the light, that wouldn't even do it. Just a different scenario, maybe the special ed classroom, if that's even a thing in your facility where there's like 6 kids or 12 kids, that would be another ideal situation. Now, if you are then now forced to go into a room where there are in fact 25 kids, what she needs to be worried about, or he needs to be worried about, is partitioning himself or herself off from the kids. So the kids, obviously that school system is not thinking about kids that much. And so they're not going to be 6 feet apart. They're not going to be socially distanced. That person needs to be able to ensure that she's social distancing herself from everybody.
Sure.
I would encourage you to get a ventilator in the room. Again, you have to worry about what the ventilation systems are doing. If the windows are closed and you're in a compact place with a lot of people, even though the data is out about whether or not coronavirus is transmitted like through air, like aerosolized, airborne. Right now, we're confident that you get it through droplets, and we're confident that you get it through fomites, which is by touching surfaces. But we're not absolutely confident that you're getting it through just being in a room with a bunch of people and it just being in the air. There is some suggestion that might be the case, which is why I recommend having an air filter. So I have an air filter that I've had in my house for the last 5 years. I just use it in general, but I would get a really high quality air filter and put it right by your desk. So it filters the air just to keep air circulating in the room. And you can get an air filter that can do large rooms. So I would definitely invest in something like that. And they can be pretty expensive, but I think it's worth it in this scenario.
Absolutely.
65 with diabetes in a room with 25 kids. I think you need to have good air. You have to have good airflow. If you can get a partition for your desk. So if the kids don't have partitions between their desks, get a partition for your desk. You can even try to make one. But I know that they're selling them like on Amazon or different places where you just put it on your desk and it basically closes you off. Now I know that people don't want to do that because it really puts a boundary between you and the kids. But we all are going to have to do things that are not ideal. But for the sake of life, I think it's something that a sacrifice that I think is necessary. And then you also just want to make sure that everyone in your class is wearing a mask at all times. And that you are wearing a mask at all times. And for that particular person, I would make sure that they have a very good high quality mask, not just a cloth mask, something with in it. What I do see a lot of older people doing, including my mom, is that they wear gloves and they're like gloving it everywhere. If you're gonna wear gloves, you're gonna have to have a big box of them and you're gonna have to change them out frequently. What I mean by that is if you have to get up and go to a person's desk and pick up their pen, after you do whatever you're doing with that utensil you just picked up, you need to take your gloves off. You can't then go back to your desk and then put your gloved hands back on your desk or touch your pen, because whatever is on the gloves is now being transmitted to wherever you're going. So for example, in the hospital, when I go into an infected patient's room, I glove up, and then when I leave, before I leave the room, I take the gloves off. And I actually brought a glove. That's the only one I could find in my house, to make sure people, because one of the things that people do is that they touch their gloves with their hands. So I just broke this glove. Okay. It's too tight. But I think this is important for people to know, because as a medical professional, we're trained how to use gloves. And sometimes I forget that everybody doesn't know how to use gloves.
Sure. So
if you have on a glove, which I've just torn, as you guys can see, if you have a glove, you cannot now take your bare hand and touch this glove. Because whatever's on this glove, which is supposed to be protecting your hand, it will now contaminate anything that the glove touches. So when you put the glove on, it should be sterile, or at least not have anything on it because you've taken it straight out of a box. And then when you take it off, you want to put your thumb underneath the backside of it and then pull it through on through the inside, and then you just want to toss it. Okay, so you don't want to pull it from the fingers, to pull it off. You
Mhm.
want to make sure that you don't touch the outside of that glove at any point in time, because you're going to assume that it's been contaminated. And so
That's
you
so
have to consider everything that you touch contaminated. Now, if you do touch something, because it's bound to happen that you're going to touch something with your bare hands, the moment you realize that, go wash your hands.
okay.
Just go wash your hands. Like, be, incessant about washing your hands. I wash my hands in the hospital all of the time. And then also just continue to remind yourself, do not touch your face. Do not touch your face, and do not touch anything that you are going to touch later, right? Again, do not go back to your desk, put your hand on a pen, after you've touched them. And if you make that mistake, then wipe the pen down. I mean, you really
Yeah,
have to be diligent.
vigilant.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
was just thinking I'm definitely a finger puller when it comes to taking off gloves. I'm the person that's pulling my gloves from the fingertips, and that's cross-contaminating,
Mhm.
and I was also thinking, seriously about, like, I really want, if there's a teacher here who is high risk, I want her to know that it's okay for you to advocate for, I can't be in a kindergarten class if it's going to be 25 students. I'm a diabetic. I can't be around that. If I have to be in a school building, this is not the ideal situation for me, because in my mind, theoretically, it makes sense to block off my desk and to, but you're a mom, like,
Yeah.
how you can't, 5-year-olds don't have boundaries. They love their teacher. They want to run up and give hugs. They just don't get it. They just don't understand partitions and boundaries and things like that. So I think the adults have to be vigilant about creating boundaries and creating spaces where they can make themselves safe.
And I
Any
think you have to be creative about realizing that we're going to have to, this is going to be a new normal for our kids. And so it's not that they're not teachable. Obviously, they're going to break the rules. They're going to come outside the box that you've tried to put them in. But
Sure.
again, beginning of school, the first day of school, we're going to talk about this new environment that you're in. Every single morning, you're going to reiterate it. 3 times a day, you're going to reiterate it. Washing your hands is going to become like, the new,
Yeah.
covering your, like, you don't move without washing your hands, just like you don't cough without covering your mouth, you
Got
know.
it.
And we cough like this, and we're not
Yeah.
coughing like this. But then the question is how do we clean the arm? Like,
It's always
I
something.
cough in something, make sure everybody has some tissue. If you have to cough, you're going to cough inside the tissue, you're going to cough inside the cloth or something. You just have to start to get really creative about making this the new normal and not
Yeah.
making it scary.
Is there, you gave us kind of these pointers about how to handle our gloves. Is
Mhm.
there, and I get in my mind, I'm not really sure the particulars about it, but I know that there are levels of protection where masks are concerned. Any pointers on the best way to choose a mask and the best way to handle our masks because our students are going to have to handle them as well. And so just like we teach them how to stand in the line and how to go sharpen their pencils, I think we're going to have to teach them, proper mask etiquette in a
Right.
classroom and just in general. So what are some things that we should be practicing or modeling ourselves, obviously, as the adults in the room, but really reiterating to students about the best kinds of masks to choose for parents and the best ways to utilize those masks?
So interestingly, there are a lot of ways to think about this. So ideally, you want some form of mask with a filter, right?
Okay,
So for example, I brought some just so I could show.
perfect.
So this is what I use in the hospital. It's a surgical mask. The problem with recommending this to people is that you want to save these for the first line healthcare workers. However, I think that if people are being forced to go back to school, I think that you are first line healthcare worker as well, and that qualifies you for getting one of the surgical masks, or even this is sort of a N95 mask. It's not the same grade as what I use in the hospital, but it has the same type of filter in it.
Okay.
So I would say, particularly for the teachers, if you can get these, my husband set up a website where you can purchase these, and I can give you the information for that if you want it. But
Yeah, give me that now. I'm gonna type it in the chat box.
I have to even tell you, it's Hachu. I'm gonna spell it for you. It's HAHCHOO.com. Hahchoo. And so he's been able to get these masks at a really low cost, and he's giving them out to the community because we just see so many people who aren't wearing them, and we're like, this is ridiculous, right? We need to be able to make sure our people have access to masks.
Sure.
So these masks, I think, are probably ideal for the teachers. I mean, if the kids, the ones, these ones are too big for the kids. The way that we use these specialized masks in the hospital, you have to be fitted for them. So like these masks actually are too big for my face, but this is better than nothing, right? And it's better than a cloth mask. So I would say to go for one of these masks if you're a teacher. Now, when you want to put these on and store them, what I would say is number one, you always want to think of the outside as being contaminated, right?
Okay.
So the outside is always contaminated. You don't want to touch the outside. So you're going to touch the straps. And this goes for any mask. So it doesn't matter if it's this mask. I think I brought up a mask of my kids somewhere around here, but I can't find it. Anyway, so it doesn't matter what type of mask it is. You don't want to touch the outside, right? And you don't want to touch the inside either, because that's the part that you're breathing and touching, right? But you're going to assume that the outside is the side that is keeping other people's droplets from getting through, right? And really, that masks are actually being used to keep you from spreading it to others, not so always keeping other people from spreading it to you. Because again, if you touch the outside of the mask and somebody's put their fomite or their, droplet, and then you put that somewhere on your face, then you've infected yourself. So you want to make sure you're touching the sides. You want to put them over your ears and over your nose, right? And then you want to make sure that your mask, if at all possible, has the
wire or whatever that is.
Right. And you want to make sure that it's under your chin. Okay. Now on these masks, as you see, there's openings on the side, so things can move, but it moves backwards, right? So it's not going to move forward into somebody's face. On these masks, you can see there's no opening, right?
Right.
So that's why these masks are better, and they also have less opening. This one again is too big for me. I can put a finger through it. So if you could put your finger, then that will tell you that it's probably too big for you, and a smaller size would do. And then the other thing you want to do is after you kind of pressed it down around your nose with that metal piece, you want to blow. If you can feel the air coming up, then it's also not a great seal. But again, that's what I think about if I'm going into a room with a known COVID patient who, is obviously aerosolizing in the room because they're intubated. So these aren't huge deals, but these are just some tips I would give you. The other thing you want to keep in mind, and we see this all the time, that people are like, they take it off, put it back on. And again, you're touching the outside of the mask. Now what you've done is you've now taken the outside of the mask, now you just put it on your chin, right? So whatever's on the outside is now on your chin.
On your face.
Yeah, so what I would say is that you just want to keep your mask on at all times. You want to avoid touching it. And then what you don't want to do is like take it off and like hold it around here and then like eat or drink or like sip, through a straw. You want to just take it off. And ideally, when you take it off, you want to take it off when there aren't other people around. And you want to put it in like a paper bag, not a plastic bag, a paper bag, because the paper bag will allow it to get air and whatever to sort of die off of it. So you want to just put it in a paper bag, and I would leave it in your classroom. I would leave the one that you use in your classroom, and then use another one when you leave and you go home or you're doing something else. If you're going to be moving about, have another one. So put another paper bag by the door, and you just take one off and put the other one on and then leave the room. And then same thing, you come in, you take that one that you used on the outside and switch it. And all you're doing is you're just keeping yourself from moving whatever germs you brought from the outside inside.
That makes sense. I've got a good question here. How often can I reuse a mask?
So that is like the $3,000 question that I have as well, because in the hospital, I reused my N95 mask since May. I replaced it once. And that's because we're trying to prevent shortages. But the question is how the integrity of the mask, right? So you want to be concerned is it soiled on the outside? Did somebody sneeze in your face and you were wearing this mask? Is there something, did you visibly dirty the mask? So those are the types of things that you would look for. Do you have a runny nose? and your nose is like dripping inside of the mask, and now the inside of the mask has gotten wet. I don't know with each particular mask how that affects the filter in it. So I would just think that is an opportunity, a good time to reuse them, I mean, to replace the mask. And if you're using sort of a cloth mask, then it doesn't really matter. Just use a new mask every day.
Okay.
Get a couple of different masks and then wash your mask. Get like 7 for the week and then wash every week and just use new masks. They do have masks that you can actually put filters inside of, so you can wash the outside and then put the filter on the inside. So that's also another good option, I think.
Can I disinfect if it's a like not the cloth mask, but can I spray my mask down with Lysol and then let it sit overnight before I put it back on? Don't disinfect your mask.
Don't disinfect your mask. Don't wipe your mask down with like a Lysol wipe or anything like that, because again, that wetness can affect the if you're using if you're trying to use a mask with a filter and you're trying to maintain the integrity of the filter, if again, I'm encouraging that for you in the classroom. These masks, when you go out and you're like at the grocery store and stuff like that, when people are just wearing cloth masks, they don't have filters, so it's not like you're walking around with a filtered mask all the time. But if you're going to be using a mask with the filter and you want to maintain the integrity of that filter, I wouldn't recommend you putting anything on it. On it. Now, what you can do, in theory, is if you have a light. What's the light? Not infrared light. There's like
the fluorescent light.
The fluorescent light. If you have like a light or something, you can put it under that to disinfect. I mean, we're doing that with a lot of the reusable masks. But again, I also said, leave it out in a paper bag. Don't like roll the paper bag up and just leave it out so that it gets an opportunity to sort of not reproduce itself on the mask, and not just COVID, but we're just talking about other bacteria and molds in general.
Sure. All right. I've got some other good questions. Somebody asked, is N95 the same as KN95?
So it's a good question, because these masks here are KN95. And what I've learned about these masks are that really the different sort of names are based off of the different type of manufacturers. Every manufacturer is the same, is like manufactures the same type of product. They don't. And then there's like a subscript under N95. So there's some masks that are better than other N95 masks. The same way, certain tennis shoes are just higher quality than other types. So they're still tennis shoes, but they're just quality is different. Yeah. So that also goes for the N95s. I don't know. Again, when you're using an N95, these are masks that were designed to be used by healthcare professionals who were taught how to use them. And so whenever somebody in the lay public is using an N95 mask, I'm going to assume if they have no healthcare background that they weren't fitted for this. So I'm less concerned about it being you having the highest quality mask, because I just don't, even if you had the highest quality mask, whether or not you were using it properly would always come up into jeopardy. I'm just saying that, if you have access to an N95 mask, a KN95 mask, or any kind of N95 mask, it's better than just using a surgical mask, just simply by the way that it's made. The idea that it gives you a more airtight seal, and you want to ensure that you have the best seal as possible. But it may not be the right fit for you. It may not be the right mask for you. So I wouldn't worry so much about that as much as I would worry about just having a good mask and using the best of your knowledge.
That is great insight. So use the mask properly, whatever type of mask you have. Make sure that you're doing the things that are necessary just to preserve the integrity of the mask.
Right.
What about, I've got another question. Hey, Coach. She's asking, do you recommend eye protection? So, and particularly for this person, but I'm thinking about coaches in general. She is an adaptive PE teacher. And even for like our coaches, our phys ed teachers, it's a lot like that kindergarten world where people are running in your, so what is the best kind of eye protection she's asking for students and for teachers?
I don't have any like samples to show you, but the ones I use in the hospital are the ones that are the visors. And you can get some of these reusable visors, and those visors, particularly if they're made of like that plastic or that hard surface, those can be reused, and you can just wipe those down. So even though you can't necessarily wipe the mask down, you can definitely wipe those protectors down. So if you have on a mask, and let's just say it's a surgical mask, or if it's a cloth mask, and then you put that protector over it, then number one, you're protecting the mask, and you're protecting your eyes and any other surfaces in your face. So that would be what I would recommend, is just wearing one of those reusable face shields. Um,
Gotcha.
Even so again, what we're worried about is somebody like spitting in your eye, or
Mhm.
getting some sort of bodily fluid from someone else into your eye. Again, that could happen if you had on regular glasses, and so maybe having an eye shield, something like goggles that kind of went all the way around your eye, would be a better option. But if you just have like regular glasses, I think that's better protection than nothing. So
Sure.
like I don't wear prescription glasses, but I wear my regular glasses sometimes, as if I'm going out. It's just a way to sort of protect my eye. Now, is that ideal? No, it's not what I use in the hospital. But
Yeah.
again, you know, we're just using what we have at our disposal.
So I'm shifting back to a different. That's great. Uh, I'm shifting back to nutrition because we talked a lot about food and consumption. And I want to take one more question, and then I want to talk about what you do to support people, anybody who's
Mhm.
trying to just, strengthen their immune system. So this last question is, what vitamins should I take if I'm going to take a supplement? Let's just say, I'm changing my diet, I'm working on my diet, I'm transition in my diet, but I still want to take these supplements. What are some things that you think people can start to take now, or start to make sure they have supplement their bodies with now to be prepared?
So I actually brought a couple of things that I use in my house and sort of what I recommend to my patients. We use, even in the hospital, really high doses of vitamin C. I think the studies are pretty good. So I use a vitamin C. Again, these should be tailored to you, honestly, by your practitioner, just depending on what other health concerns you have going on, because vitamin C can interact with certain things. And then when we talk about dosing, how much of it? So we don't really have. Let me give this caveat. With all of the supplements I recommend are things that have been studied in other viruses, like the flu or other coronaviruses. But none of these things have actually been shown that proven to actually help in COVID. And the ones that have been studied have been looked at in people who are in the hospital at very, very high doses. That's not
Okay.
what I'm recommending here. What I do recommend as far as boosting your immune system would be a really good vitamin C supplement. I use one that is liposomal, so it gets absorbed into the body better, and so you have high. I don't need as much of it, but I would recommend that you take at least a couple of hundred milligrams of vitamin C a day, and probably multiple times a day. So you don't want to take vitamin C in the morning and think it's going to last you throughout the day. It's a water soluble vitamin, and you pee it out. So what you want to do is you want to keep your levels high. So if you're really concerned, you would maybe take some chewable vitamin C tablets, put them on your desk, and just chew them throughout the day, several times a day. If you take too much vitamin C, you will know, because you will get diarrhea. So that is, it will not hurt you, but it will
Yeah.
definitely give you the runs. And then you just back off. You just don't take as much. So I use echinacea generally. The studies on echinacea and COVID, or on coronaviruses, is questionable. A lot of it has to do with how our immune systems work, but I do use echinacea, particularly when I feel like I'm coming down with something. So I'll use echinacea or elderberry, like you had mentioned before. I don't think I brought my elderberry up. This is like my go-to immune booster. Whenever I feel like I'm getting sick, this is what I take. Um,
Okay.
it's elderberry and echinacea. I have tried tinctures. I have tried all different types of ways of taking it. This particular product from Gaia Herbs is my favorite. It's what I use.
I'm
And
going to spell echinacea right, but I'm going to give it a go.
yeah, I mean, I have a website where you can have access to all of my professional grade. My website doesn't like sell supplements, but I have access to supplements through my website. So if you're interested in these types of supplements, I would I always recommend professional grade instead of just getting sort of what's over the counter. Some of the ones over the counter are good, but because supplements aren't regulated, I usually tell people it's better just to go for a professional grade. Um, so for my kids, that's what I use. It's called
Okay.
Again, this has like echinacea, elderberry, and it's sort of in a sweet, syrupy instead of like an alcohol base. And then just a general multivitamin, a good high quality multivitamin. Um,
Okay.
I'm a woman, so I use it with iron. And then also fish oil. Again, you can see it's been used here.
Mhm.
So what do I take every day? I just take a good multivitamin. I usually take a squirt or two of vitamin C, and then also vitamin D, which I always take anyway. That's sort of what I take all the time. If I feel like I've come in contact with somebody who's been sick and I wasn't wearing protection, because obviously I come in contact with people who are sick every single day, but I will tell you that I feel safer in the hospital than I do out in the world because I'm protected. And so you can go into these environments, and I probably should have said this first. You can go into these environments and be protected and feel safe. I feel extremely safe in the hospital where I am only taking care of COVID patients on ventilators.
Okay.
Okay. And that's because I am fully protected. Um,
Right.
so you just want to be fully protected when you go into these situations. But if I feel like I'm coming down with something, I will typically do like a mixture of like echinacea, elderberry, wobo, and some. Find a good nutritionist who understands supplements. But I usually do like a little tincture. But if I feel like I'm coming down with something, I go to Quick Defense every single time.
Okay.
So that's sort of what I do.
So I'm trying to type in all of your vitamins here so people can take advantage of just some of the things that you mentioned. And also I just want to reiterate the idea of when you can go after professional grade vitamins. And so pro grade.
Yeah, they actually sell this in like some of the health food stores. Like Gaia.
Okay.
Gaia Herbs is one. Herb Farm is another one that sells like echinacea and elderberry, and they have a professional grade. I just know that those companies are good. Um, yeah. So
What
and
about,
then
tell me some more. I'm going to type, I think it's Dr. Peoples, correct? drpeoples.com.
yeah,
All right. So I'm going to type that in the chat box as well. www.drpeoples.
doc. So it's drNicolePeoples.com. Sorry.
Dr. Nicole Peoples.
Yeah, and I have a whole video where I go through like supplements, and I can give that to you, and you can put it on your page if you like. And I have a whole video that tells people how to access supplements from my website because it's not always intuitive. But if you know the names of the supplements, you can just type them in, and it will pop up, and you can purchase them. So you just put the names. Mhm.
So I want to just say that this has been amazing. And I want to make sure that people know that they have access to you. So www.drnicolepeoples.com. I believe we've only kind of skimmed the surface of all the information we could really gather about our personal selves. And maybe this is just an opportunity for everybody to just kind of look inward and do the things that we need to do to just preserve, our temples and our physical bodies, and, protect ourselves. And so I think that what you've given us is just we talk a lot about our teacher toolboxes and filling our teacher toolboxes with, best practices and strategies to reach students. And I think now we're learning more important to fill our teacher toolboxes with things that are going to protect us, keep us safe, and keep us healthy, because it's at the forefront of what we do every day. And so I want you to share something for teachers just as you close, as a doctor, as a mom, as a professional. If you had to leave us with something today, what would you want to leave the educators who are watching this and who will watch it? What would you want to leave us with today?
A couple of things. The first is you're not helpless. You're not being thrown into the wolves. You can actually protect yourselves in these environments. You just have to be proactive. That would be the first thing. Make sure that you're wearing your mask, make sure you're doing your hand hygiene, make sure that the school is committing to wiping down surfaces and you're wiping down surfaces. So you can do those things. Those are within your control. The other two areas of like just sort of general health that we didn't really touch on, but I think are probably more important than anything we've talked about is sleep. Really focus on getting your sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a night. I really don't mean that that is the thing that really regenerates your immune system. So without sleep, your immune system does not function well. And so you don't get sleep and then you go into a room where there's infection. Once you get in contact with that infection, your body doesn't have the reserve to fight. And the other thing is going to be stress. So I don't want people to really stress so much about this situation. I want you to be proactive about it. You know what you're going up against. You know what tools you need to have in your toolbox. And so I want you to have a sense of confidence, but I also want people to start to implement things in their life that help manage stress. So things like meditation, yoga, therapy. I mean, this is a tough situation. We've all got to work through what's ever going on in our lives, whatever we brought to this moment. We need to work with those things that have happened in our past that may make this more difficult for us. So I really recommend us really supporting our mental health in this time. And so sleep, stress management, and just preparedness.
I love that. I thank you for leaving us with those important things. I'm seeing a lot of very informatives and thank yous. And I just want to say from the bottom of my true blue heart, I appreciate you answering the call and responding to. I'm sorry, my lighting is so bad. I've got to invest in a ring light or something if I'm going to keep doing this. But my lighting went out. But I just, I hope you can see my heart that I really appreciate what you've given to teachers. And it's a video, so it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving. So thank you so much, Dr. Peoples. I'm going to share those videos that she talked about in the group and on the page Steam Powered. And so if you are part of the group or if you follow the page, or you haven't followed the page yet, go ahead and follow the page, like the page. Her videos will be there and you'll get information. We're going to have somebody coming up next week, same time, same place, to talk about mental health. And so that piece that you kind of mentioned about being proactive and not stressing out and getting enough rest and how we protect our mental health, that's going to come up next week. And so just to reiterate for the thank yous that are coming up in our feed right now, we appreciate you, Dr. Peoples. Thank you for being on the front lines. Thank you for fighting for our grandmothers and our aunts and uncles who are, ill, and you leave your family to go and put yourself on the front lines. And so we are appreciative of the things that you do, and we can only hope to follow in your footsteps as new essential frontline workers and really not be helpless and make you proud. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.